Hi, it's Mike. How are you today? In today's video, we're going to continue our series on selling your home for sale by owner. This is part 2, forms and documents. Let's get into it. So thanks for tuning into the channel today and watching our series on selling your home for sale by owner. In this video, we're going to go over some of the legal forms that you're going to need. In video number 1, we recommended that you hire a real estate attorney. So I'm going to show you some of the forms that they would be using if they help you in this transaction. Now, some of the forms are used exclusively by real estate agents. I do not recommend that you just go to Office Depot and come up with a one-page contract. The real estate purchase contract gets revised just about every year to 2 or 3 years. And the reason it gets revised is because there's so many lawsuits over some of the language and confusion. It used to be a one-page contract in many states, and now it's a 10-page contract in Arizona. There's a lot of reasons that legal stuff is in there to cover both the buyer and the seller. It includes time periods that are very critical to the transaction. And then on top of that, you have some other forms. So let's get in and review some of the forms that are involved in selling your home for sale. So here's some of the primary forms that you're going to use. And the number one most important thing is the purchase contract. We'll go over and show you some of the information that's in the residential purchase contract. The second thing is, and one of the most important things because it's one of the most sued items in a home, is a seller's property disclosure. Do not sell your home for sale by owner without disclosing everything that you know about the property. This is one of the top reasons people get sued when they're selling their home, and when you're selling it for sale by owner, it doesn't mean that you don't have to disclose. You need to tell everything you know about the property. The next thing you're going to have is a buyer's inspection response form, because the buyers are going to be getting a home inspection. It's spelled out in the standard Arizona residential real estate contract that most inspections are 10 days. Right now, with inspectors being busy, it may take longer. A document that real estate agents commonly use is a wire fraud addendum. It's a document that basically informs both parties that there's a lot of wire fraud going on right now and be aware of it. The next document that we're going to talk about is a buyer's advisory. A buyer's advisory is something real estate agents use because it's got a lot of great information about understanding the purchase contract and some of the terminology, and it also has links to a lot of websites that give additional information that's educational for both the buyers and the sellers. The next one that real estate agents commonly use is market conditions. This is a document primarily used by real estate agents in a transaction. The next thing that's going to be needed in the purchase contract most likely is an addendum. An addendum is a form where any changes to the contract can be done on this addendum. The next form is a counteroffer form. That is used during the negotiations of the general contract. It can be used for purchase price, terms and conditions, and other things in the purchase contract. Lead-based paint. The Arizona residential real estate contract has a condition on lead-based paint, just to advise people that homes built before 1978 contain lead-based paint. What if you don't fill this out? What if this isn't in your contract and you have lead-based paint and a child ends up eating some of the paint and gets ill? It can happen. Who's liable? You're liable as a seller. There's a lot of things you got to understand and know to be the best seller that you can as far as your liabilities. Representation. It's a form that we use to let the buyer and seller know who's representing who. The next thing you need to talk about is the appraisal contingency. Realtors use an appraisal contingency form that clearly spells out if the buyer is going to waive the appraisal, we have a form for that. The next thing is a buyer's final walkthrough, pre-closing walkthrough. If I was selling my home for sale by owner, I would definitely want the buyers to sign off on the home. If you're selling it for sale by owner, I would create a form or check with your attorney to get a form that would talk about someone walking through the home and accepting the home and signing off on it in the condition it is before they do the final purchase. The next thing that you're going to want to know is loan status. Real estate agents use a loan status form. It's something they provide to the lenders, or the lenders can provide it in the transaction to let you know where the buyer's loan process is. You're going to want to, as a seller, find out and keep up with the lender and talk about the loan status. It's very important to the transaction because there's key dates that are going into the transaction, and you're in the middle of packing your home to move, and you need to keep up on that loan to find out if they're doing everything they can to get that loan, because if it doesn't close on time, you're going to have to cancel your move, and that can be really disheartening after you packed all your stuff and you're ready to go. Maybe you even bought another home. Many times this whole loan approval process comes down to the last few days of a contract. So that can be very disheartening if something should happen. If there's a septic tank, real estate agents use a septic wastewater form. And another form that you're going to want to have in that contract, or have it part of the contract, is insurance claims history. You want to provide the buyers with a proof of insurance and any claims that you've made, because that can affect them. So now I want to show you what real estate agents use for some of their forms. And this is the residential purchase contract that we discussed. You know, if you go to Office Depot and buy one, you're going to find out that it's probably missing a lot of things that are going to help you on liability issues. It talks about purchase price, it talks about earnest money, it talks about close of escrow, possession, additional forms and documents included, fixtures and things that are included in the sale. You know, many times it's got a spot for refrigerator and other appliances, because many times people swap them out before they sell the home. It talks about the financing and the terms of the financing and how it's going to affect both the buyer and the seller. The type of financing, changes to it, the appraisal contingency. Next it talks about title and escrow, tax prorations. Next thing it talks about is disclosures, which is the one thing that there's a lot of lawsuits over. There it's talking about lead-based paint. Here it's talking about warranties, things that survive closing. Next thing it's talking about due diligence, square footages, wood destroying organisms, flood hazards, insurance, sewer system, swimming pools, inspection period stuff. Next it talks about home warranties, remedies to the contract, should there be any issues, additional terms and conditions. There's a lot more to the contract than people think about. And we're referencing days. Days are very important. In real estate, it's not a work week schedule. It's calendar days. Every day counts in a real estate transaction. It's not days when you're working or not working. That's very important. What happens if there's a cancellation? Who gets to keep the earnest money? All these things are in this purchase contract. So it's something that you need to keep in mind when you're looking at getting your own contract together. Here's a sample of the disclosure form that we use. It talks about, information that the seller's going to disclose. Who's the legal owner? There's just a number of things that's included in this document. And again, this is one of the most critical documents the sellers need to share with the buyers. The next one is an inspection response form after the buyers get their home inspection. He's going to talk about that. They have the right to walk away from the property, keep the property, ask for repairs. They can waive the inspection, and then the seller gets to respond to their actions, and that all happens after the 10-day inspection period. Again, here's the form that we use for wire fraud. It talks about wire fraud, and it gives a lot of good websites that you can link to gather more information about the wire fraud. This is the buyer's advisory that we utilize. It talks about some of the common terms and stuff on a purchase contract in a lot of the forms. Look at all the documents listed here. These are a lot of the documents that you're going to see in a transaction. And it's not just one or two. Common conditions to investigate. It just basically walks a buyer through things that they need to look into before they go and buy a home. Then it starts to talk about the purchase contract, contingencies, seller's property disclosure, and it gives you links for you to gather more information on that particular document. And as you can see, this is a big advisory. There's a lot of information here on this buyer's advisory. And this is again given out to the people that are buying the home and signing off on it that they've received it because it's important to the transaction. It's important to know that you share this information. These are forms again that your real estate attorney can advise you on. So the next one is a market conditions. We talked a little bit about that. The next thing is an addendum should anything change in the contract. This would override the existing contract. Here's the counteroffer form that you could utilize. Now these forms are not available to anyone other than realtors, and if a real estate agent gives it to you, that can be a problem. Here's the lead-based paint, consent to limited representation, appraisal contingencies. There's your buyer's final walkthrough, pre-closing walkthrough, a loan status update form. So we recommend you investigate and get the proper forms to sell your home professionally for sale by owner. In our next video, we're going to talk part 3 about marketing your property for sale. Tune in for the next video. Thanks for watching.